Alright boys, I'm finally back from Brisbane, and today we're going to be taking a look at everything involved in my run at the Brisbane Regionals. We're talking about the team, I'll be doing a bit of a team report on it, we'll take a look at my flow charting as well, just so I can show you guys kind of what goes through my mind, and then basically we'll talk about my run. As you guys can see here, I ended up going 6-2 at the event. Unfortunately, this event was really brutal because we did not hit the kicker, which was like 227. We didn't get a day 2 Swiss, which means it was only 8 rounds of Swiss, and it was a 7-1 cut, which is incredibly brutal, especially when, you know, you have an event like this. You go 6-2. I feel like I could have kept playing, and I wish I could keep playing, but obviously, you know, I lost early in the event, and because of that, unfortunately, I did not make day 2. And also, you know, I ended up finishing 22nd at this event. Unfortunately, my resistance did not hold up. I could have technically finished 9th if I had good resistance. Ended up falling all the way to 22nd, you know, to meet all the other 6-2s. As you guys see here, obviously, you know, top 16 is 6-2, and then you see your boy all the way down here at 22nd, which was kind of sad. But anyway, boys, let's jump into the team. So to kick things off here, guys, this is the 6 mons I brought here. You see, I've got the Tornadus, the Fluttermane, Chiyu, Hisuian Arcanine, Rillaboom, and Ogerpon, Wellspring Masks. Now, basically, I guess to kick things off here, this team was originally built around the idea of playing Chiyu plus Fluttermane paired up with Tornadus, or essentially Tailwind, and Tornadus was my Tailwind setter of choice here. Basically, I just decided, you know what, Chiyu was one of my favorite Pokemon, you know, introduced in this game. You know, I didn't get to take it to OCIC this year. Unfortunately, you know, it was not out at the time. So I really wanted to bring it to Brisbane. And I think its best partner, without a doubt, is Fluttermane. I think they just have amazing synergy together, whether that be, you know, Chiyu, you know, boosting up the Fluttermane, especially, you know, Terra Fairy Moonblast coming off this thing, or, you know, my Fluttermane really being a speed booster set here with Icy Wind, allowing my Chiyu really to, you know, kind of go first and always get off its really powerful, you know, moves like, you know, Dark Pulse, Heat Wave, you know, Overheat, you know, when paired up with our choice specs here. And then, of course, Tornadus here, its main job was really just to set up Tailwind for the boys. So I guess, look, we'll start off with Tornadus, we'll go through its moveset, its EVs and whatnot, and then continue down the line. So, Tornadus here, originally when I, you know, first started crafting this team, my Tornadus was built with basically, you know, speed and a bit of offense in mind. And, you know, I will show you guys some of the spreads a little later for what I originally had in mind. But essentially, I was looking at things like, you know, Sharp Beak or Covert Cloak, right? The idea was really to make sure that my Air Slashes next to Chiyu hit really hard. And I guess Air Slash is something we'll quickly touch on as well. I know a lot of people run Bleak Windstorm. I ended up deciding to go Air Slash just because, one, this team had like major inconsistency issues, you know, with things like Chiyu having 3 moves that can miss, Hisuian Arcanine's Rock Slides being able to miss. And that was really the main thing. I had games where, you know, I would test it, where I would lead things like Tornadus Arcanine. I'd have opens where I'd just go like Bleak Wind Rock Slide, and I'd hit like 1 out of the 4 moves. And I basically just thought to myself, you know, I'm okay missing 1 Rock Slide, but I don't really want to be in a situation where I'm missing a Rock Slide paired up with, you know, like 2 Bleak Windstorm misses, or even 1, right? Just like double missing them on. Felt really bad. But also there were a lot of situations too, because I had so much speed control, that Air Slash paired up with, you know, either Dark Pulse off the Chiyu or, you know, Rock Slide off the Arcanine was really good in terms of like flinching ones. I did have some games, I think one in particular, where I don't necessarily think it mattered, because I think I did Terra Fairy my Arcanine in that matchup, but I ended up like perma flinching an Iron Hands because I just like Air Slashed it 3 times with like just spamming my Rock Slides, and it basically didn't get to move for 3 turns. Which, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, I believe the double 30% chance here ends up being like 53% chance to flinch every turn, which means like as long as I was hitting the Rock Slides and the Air Slashes, it was more likely they were going to flinch or not, and stuff like that I think was like kind of really important. Like, I don't want to say it was really important, but there was definitely games where it kind of mattered and definitely made, you know, games easier than it should have been. I ended up opting for Sunny Day. Again, I'll go through some of the older teams, but I did really, you know, toss and turn between Sunny Day and Rain Dance. There were definitely teams where I had Rain Dance. I ended up settling on Sunny Day, one, because I didn't really think I'd run into that many Torkoals, and on top of that as well, I wasn't that scared of Torkoal, right? You look at my team, Chiyu can eat an Eruption, Hisuian Arcanine easily eats an Eruption, Terrify, Assault Vest, Rillaboom can also eat them, not to mention, you know, you got things like Fake Out and Grassy Glide to, you know, obviously kind of like help you chip down the Torkoal before it gets attacks off, and then of course as well, you know, Terra Water Ogerpon is also really good into Torkoal in terms of like, you can eat the attack and then you can fire off, you know, pretty strong, you know, Ivy Cudgel. Even if the sun's up, you're still going to do a good chunk of damage, and then at that point they can't really spam Eruption anymore. So that's kind of why I ended up opting for Sunny Day. I kind of quickly brushed over Tailwind. It's just my speed control. I want to go first. That's kind of my play style. I didn't actually run Taunt as well. Sorry, I did drop this last second. I was in the hotel room umming and ahhing over that when I was uploading this team into Arcanine Labs. It was basically the last mod I put in. I ended up opting for Protect. I think it was the right play at the end of the day. The main reason why I opted for Protect is because if you have a look at my set here in particular, like I haven't gotten to the EVs yet, but I'm incredibly bulky. And one of the biggest issues I had with opposing Tailwind teams was, especially in open team sheet, people, seeing my Tornadus doesn't have taunt, theirs does. And game one, sometimes they'd just fish, right? They'd go for the taunt, see whose was faster. And basically in games where it was like, okay, I know my Tornadus is slower, I kind of need to be able to like put on pressure with the air slash. And like kind of the way I would beat opposing Tailwind teams was like either one, we trade Tailwinds, turn one, for example, because like they wouldn't go for the taunt. But then like my game plan would always be try to win on the second Tailwind. So what I would try to do is use my things like Chi-Yu, Arcanine, Ogerpon, whatever it may be, to get rid of their Tornadus. And then, I was able to then use Protect on mine to kind of stall out and then eventually get up the Tailwind again. Which was very, very important in quite a lot of matches. In terms of the EVs here, I just went super, super bulky here. Honestly, this spread was kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? Inspired by Regav's set that they used a few weeks back when I think it was was it the Reggie Drago team, I think? Because originally I was like running really, really quick Tornadus, as I said. But after some locals, I was talking to some of the boys, like it really, like there wasn't that many people, especially at my locals, that were running Tornadus at all. And my locals did have some of the best plays in the event. Basically two of which, Nick and Lewis basically go to every local and they finished first and second. And because a lot of, teams like that, that's why I ended up going like really bulky with Rocky Helmet, just because I didn't anticipate playing up against a lot of opposing Tornaduses, which is actually really funny because in my 8 rounds, I played 5 Tailwind teams. So it is kind of crazy that, yeah, I opted for this and it was actually bad. But I ended up, doing quite a bit of work with it, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, that's my Tornadus, Terra Steel, Rocky Helmet, super bulky. The gist of this one was essentially just to stay alive, get up the second Tailwind. Sunny Day plus Rocky Helmet was incredibly good into, Urshifu's as well. And yeah, overall, this was just a really, really strong mon. It came to a lot of my matches, even like some balance matches it was like really good in. I think there was like one regular Ursaluna I played against where like this was like really good because it could eat attacks and then it could like also, like help you dodge the the ground type attacks, obviously, and then you're just able to kind of like position around, protect, to dodge facades, stuff like that. Really, really good. Now onto Fluttermane. I honestly don't feel like this mon needs that much of an explanation. I think everyone at this point kind of knows what Fluttermane does. On my team in particular, obviously you can see I'm Terra Fairy, double Fairy Stab with Icy Wind, Protect, no Shadow Ball. And the main reason for that is I was using, I don't know how to pronounce it properly off the top of my head. It's like the Palkia Academy, something like that. Spreadsheet, basically. I did like 100 test games using like this core in particular, like these 3. It was completely other, 3 mons here on the team. But after like all my testing, I noticed that like in 100 games, I'd click Shadow Ball like 3 times. And because of that, I ended up saying, you know what, stuff it. At the time, I was running Dazzling Gleam plus Shadow Ball. And I was like, you know what, I'm not even clicking Dazzling Gleam. I'm not clicking Shadow Ball. What's the point? Let's just go, Moonblast to make our Terra Fairy even stronger. And there was a lot of situations where this Moonblast came in clutch. Dazzling Gleam's obviously just fantastic spread. It's really good in a lot of end games, or, you get it on the board and there's a mon that's on 10% health. And at that point, Fluttermane's basically killing anything from 10%, even if you resist it. And Icy Wind on this team was super, super crucial. One of the biggest reasons why I wanted this was because a lot of the common choice Scarf mons in the metagame were things like, obviously Scarf, Urshifu. You've also got things like Scarf Lando were like the 2 major ones. And the main reason for, like, I guess going Icy Wind was because, like, if you have a look at most of my team here, Chi-Yu in particular, after an Icy Wind, it's able to outspeed it. You can see my set here is very, very offensive. I kind of do regret going this offensive, but I'll kind of get into why I ran it in a minute. But basically, Icy Wind was fantastic because there was a lot of situations, even, going up against things like Specs Fluttermane, right? Normally a Specs Fluttermane could just like one-shot your Chi-Yu, but if you go like Icy Wind into Overheat, you're like KOing any Fluttermane in the game. It's really good. And there was a lot of situations like that where, I'd be up against something like a Scarf, Landorus. I'd just go like Icy Wind Heat Wave, I'd pick it up and it just, yeah, it didn't even matter if they went like Terra Flying to try to like dodge the damage coming out of the Icy Wind. They would just straight up die to the Heat Wave. Because of that, Fluttermane, it just did its job, man. This one's very simple. It's not really that much crazy stuff to, I guess, really explain here. I also do think I actually was slightly faster. I think that was my spread in particular, just to help speed creep stuff. The bulk's the standard bulk. I believe it helps you live something like Adamant, Ice Spinner, Always, from a Qian Power and stuff like that. It's nothing too crazy. The speed stat was because like one, I think Roaring Moon off memory hits, I think Roaring Moon hits 189. So originally I went 190, but then there were some situations on ladder where I was getting like outsped by opposing flutter mains who were obviously, I think, you know, around that same speed tier. So I ended up saying, you know what, I don't want to go like max speed, but 192 just feels like a pretty good spot. In hindsight, I wish I just went 190. I came up against like one Iron Bundle that was faster than me, and I didn't go up against a single other speed booster mon that wasn't Roaring Moon. So because of that, I do think just going like 190 was probably the right play. But regardless, I had that little bit of extra speed just in case, especially too because I don't think the damage really mattered. Because like while this mon like didn't hit that hard without Terra Fairy, the second you factor in Terra Fairy plus Chiyu, it actually still like slaps quite hard even with the speed booster. Now for the start of the show, Chiyu, my guy, absolutely love Specs Chiyu. I'm not gonna lie, there was a stage where I really was considering either one, just getting rid of Chiyu entirely, or two, using a different item. And again, I'll get into that a little bit later, but there was one stage where this team had triple choice plus AV, and then Tornadus also didn't have Protect. That's also another reason why as well I have Protect on Tornadus, because like Fluttermane Tornadus have Protect, but then I'm Specs, Banded, and AV. So I only had like 2 Protects if Tornadus didn't have Protect, so it's kind of another reason why I went Protect as well. But yeah, Chiyu, the star of the show. Chiyu honestly beats like almost any Trick Room. The only Trick Room that I kind of had like slight issues with my Chiyu was Sunroom. Like Lilligant was like the only thing on Trick Room I really cared about. Anything else was like, it's free. This one beats Side Spam pretty easy. It's really good into Blood Moon Ursaluna. Like the only Blood Moon Ursaluna that kind of really beats it is the Terra Normal weakness policy set with Dusclops. But there's also like pretty good lines into like basically when you play a team like that, it's either one, you one-shot the Dusclops turn 1, which by the way, Floodmane Moonblast plus a Terra Ghost Overheat will always do. Which is like fantastic. There isn't Terra Ghost, by the way, so they can't fake you out. And if your opponent leads something like a redirection mon, for example, a lot of the time that was like Ogerporn Fire or Water. Basically, the game plan I had was just let them get up their Trick Room turn 1 and then kind of just pivot around, stall them out, play the game incredibly slow. And then with like 1 or 2 turns left of Trick Room, that's where you kind of start really putting on the pressure. But there was a lot of times where people would just straight up lead, you know, like Dusclops plus say Iron Hands, for example, is a really common one. And I would just go Moonblast Overheat into the Dusclops, and it didn't matter what they did because they were almost always Terra Dark. If they clicked Terra Dark, the Fluttermane did about 80%. If they didn't, the Overheat would do about 80%. Well, I mean, the Overheat did 80% anyway, but obviously, you know, if they went Terra Dark, it was a guaranteed kill. And even without Terra Dark, it was always a guaranteed kill just because they're also physically defensive. But yeah, Chiyu, it was like fantastic at breaking a lot of the Trick Room teams. Also fantastic into a lot of opposing tailwinds. One of my favorite matchups as well was when people would lead their Scarf Lando next to Tornadus, and I would lead Tornadus plus Chiyu, because like a lot of the time what will happen is they won't play the mind game of whose is faster, just because it's like, hey, I know I'm Scarf and their Chiyu isn't, let's just get up tailwind, you know, you take it out, right? And Terra Ghost was really good because it allows you to basically live the Stomping Tantrum, and then you can just go like Sunny Day plus Heat Wave and you just pick up both of them. It just insta-kills both, and at that point then you're able to get your Tailwind up, and because you get your Tailwind up later, put you in a fantastic spot where, you know, you can pivot Chiyu around if you needed. And really Chiyu, just like late game, it's insane. Like this Dark Pulse is a good chance. Like I think against my own Arcanine, it's still like a 50% chance to kill, and as you see here, like mine's kind of bulky, it's nothing insane, but like 116-12. And you know, this Specs Dark Pulse is a higher roll for me to kill than him, like my own Arcanine to survive, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, dude, this mod, it's definitely the star of the show. It did almost cost me one set where it missed an Overheat turn 1 on a Tornadus that would have killed and made things quite difficult. But outside of that, honestly, it didn't really miss any moves that mattered. Because actually, even in saying that, that one Overheat I missed, I'm sure I'll talk about it later. I missed the Overheat and still ended up winning the game, even after some crazy hacks. But yeah, so Chiyu, definitely the star of the show. This mon puts on, like, the damage this mon can do is insane. There's a lot of times where I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, it's like 60%, it resists Dark Pulse, like there's no way I kill, and then Dark Pulse just kills, and it's crazy. It was also really good next to Tornadus as well, buffing up air slashes. But yeah, Chiyu, star of the show. I'm so glad I used it, and yeah. Now, for Hisuian Arcanine, this mon honestly ended up being the glue I needed. When I was doing a lot of testing with this team early, because I don't know if I mentioned it in the intro. Honestly, I probably am actually going to redo the intro because I think I left out way too much information. But my Hisuian Arcanine fixed so many bad matchups, it was insane. And again, I'm sure I'll touch on it later when I show you guys the original version of this team. But Hisuian Arcanine, with these three in particular being Torn, Flutter, Sheaf, and Chiyu, it just fixed so many bad matchups. Like Power Knight was rough, this made it easy. Opposing Tornaduses could be difficult because you don't know what they're going to lead. Arcanine just made it a lot easier. It was the glue of the team. Rock Slide is like super good into a lot of the metagame. Banded Flare Blitz is also like insanely good. Like you do so much damage. E-Speed's great late game for picking things off. And there was one game in particular where that came in clutch where I picked up like an Ogre Pawn from like 40%. And then Terra Blast Fairy. Honestly, I probably didn't click Terra Blast as much as I should have. But look, there are a lot of situations where you go up against like an Iron Hands, for example. All of a sudden, a bad matchup becomes a good one. Same with like Roaring Moon. A lot of the Roaring Moons at this event were like Breaking Swipe plus knockoff. All of a sudden, it can't touch you. Yeah, sure, it's Terra Poison. You don't want to Terra Blast it, but you just go like Terra Fairy, and you can start spamming E-Spleeds, Rock Slides, whatever it might be. But Hisuian Arcanine was like the main glue of this team. It was fantastic. Its ability to like, especially pair up incredibly well with these two as well, which we'll kind of get into shortly, was fantastic. Again, it was the glue I needed. It just patched so many weaknesses this team had. And yeah, it was fantastic. The spreads, I don't remember particularly off the top of my head exactly what they did. The attack was a bump. Obviously, I just want to hit the bump, get the most out of it. I believe the bulk in particular helped me live a Choice Banded Aqua Jet with Sword of Ruin from D-Knight, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what I calced for. Spadef was just to put 2 points into it rather than 1 because I like even numbers. And then I just dumped the rest in speed because I wanted it as fast as possible. I think if I was to redo this, I probably would drop a lot of the speed. I don't know if the speed ever came into play that much. And I think a little bit more damage. Like I think if I was ever to like redo this, going up to like maybe like 196 and then like maybe investing a little bit in bulk would have been the play. But yeah, regardless, that's what I went with. I still really liked it. It still did a lot of damage. And definitely one of the best glue mons I had. Now, speaking of glue mons, these last two in particular, I'll try speed up, with these two just because there's nothing too crazy really to say about them. But they basically ended up being like the unsung heroes of this team. I really, really like how this team worked together. Honestly, the only thing I really disliked about this team in the end was my opposing Tornadus mirrors. Like running the Tornadus mirrors was not something I was really prepared for. And maybe that was my issue, just because like in all my testing, really, I didn't play up against many Tornaduses. But these guys basically patched up like all my balance matchups, all my trick room matchups. Like it made everything like super like good, right? Fake Out obviously is fantastic from Rillaboom. Grassy Terrain as well is like super nice, and I'll kind of touch on that as well with Ogre Pawn shortly. Grassy Glide giving me a second priority move on the team was fantastic. Wood Hammer with this attack investment, always one shots non-Terra Blood Moon or Solunas with max HP, which was like super clutch because that was a mon I personally in particular expected to see a lot. Just because I knew one opponent in particular was running it, and also it was just kind of popular around my locals. There was quite a few people running it. Because of that, I really just wanted to basically make sure I had answers to something like Blood Moon Ursa Luna, especially because with Assault Vest, you're able to live basically any attack from it. I'm pretty sure even a +1 Blood Moon, I was able to like live pretty comfortably with this set. And then High Horsepower was essentially there just for some bad matchups, things like Hisuian Arcanine. That was actually one of like my worst matchups as well originally before I had my own Arcanine, was Hisuian Arcanine. And then also Heatran could be kind of rough, right? I had lines into Heatran, but having something like, a decently quick Rillaboom, with speed control, able to like, outspeed in one shot opposing Heatrans was also super clutch. And Terrafire as well. Look, I tested Terra Grass, I tested it with Qian Pao. I did not think it was all that, but Terrafire honestly was fantastic. There was a lot of matchups where Terrafire was like the MVP. Terrafire was like super good into obviously like Torkoal, like literally basically Sunroom teams. Obviously, having a grass type was also like really good to things like Amoonguss with Trick Room. Grassy Surge was also really good into Psy Spam. Funny enough, there was actually 2 Psy Spam teams in the top 4 at this event, I believe. But yeah, Rillaboom, it was like such a good mon, dude. I tested this mon a lot. I didn't like it up until like a week before the event when I like had it on this particular team, and things just kind of clicked. I honestly went from hating this mon to like arguably being the best mon on this team. Honestly, every mon on this team really pulled its weight. I honestly can't stress that enough. I feel like every mon really did their job. And then finally, Ogre Pawn Wellspring. Again, when I kind of show you guys all the versions I originally had on this team, I tested this mon like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, this mon's not it. On paper, it does what I need it to, but it's just not doing the job. And then one small change really just fixed everything this mon had. So as you'll see here, I'm Ivy Cudgel, Horn Leech, Swords Dance, Spiky Shield. Horn Leech and SD are the two main things I'm going to kind of touch on here. I did test like SD with Grassy Glide, but Horn Leech was the move that really just fixed all the issues this team had, which does actually sound kind of insane when you think about it. In terms of the spreads here, I originally was actually quite slow, but the homie Mario ended up suggesting that I run fast, and that was a fantastic suggestion. I'm so glad I ran fast over Pawn. There were a lot of matchups where I was just able to outspeed things that I didn't think I was going to. It'd be like, you know, there'd be a mon that is like faster. You're like, oh, if they're like Jolly/Timid Max, I'm just going to get outsped and die here. But then I was just faster, and it was like super, super clutch. Even like one of the other things in particular I really liked about this set as well was Landorus's, like Jolly Max Speed Landorus hits 157. So even if they're Scarf, after an Icy Wind, I'm able to outspeed and one-shot them with Ivy Cudgel, which was super, super clutch. And yeah, honestly, this mon, it patched, like, the main thing this really patched for me was balanced matchups and trick room matchups. And I'll kind of show you guys some of my flowcharting after we go through, you know, the team and whatnot. But there were so many matchups in particular where I'd go up against, for example, Trick Room. A great one was Megan's team. She was running a Blood Moon Ursa Luna team with, like, you know, Iron Hands and whatnot. And basically my lines into those teams were like lead like Arcanine plus, you know, Ogerborn. If they, you know, if she led something like her own Iron Hands, I would just immediately switch in my Rillaboom. You know, they'd be -1. I'd just get the SD up, and like that's what I did against like all the balanced teams, all the Trick Room teams. It was just get the Swords Dance up, and then once I get the SD up, I can just Horn Leech my way through Trick Room, right? I can fake out, swap into Arcanine. As I swap into Arcanine, you know, you go for like the Spiky Shield. Or, you know, like maybe you attack as you swap in the Rillaboom, and then you can like Spiky Shield, you know, fake out, sorry, not Spiky Shield, fake out. If you got fake out up, obviously attack, but a lot of situations where these two with Intimidate plus Fake Out were able to just put Ogerborn in positions where, you know, Iron Hands could do, say, like 60% to me with a Wild Charge, and then all of a sudden a +2 Horn Leech into range just gets me back to full HP as I faked them out, and then I've got like Spiky Shield plus like Wood Hammer to pick up a KO. So yeah, Ogerborn was super, super clutch. As I said, the spreads were, this basically like hit the bump. I forget exactly what the bulk did. There was something in particular it hit. But the speed was to outspeed Landorus. I hit the attack I wanted, kind of just split, because again, I hate odd numbers. Like I hate like 105, 117. So it was kind of just like, ooh, it was kind of like hit the even numbers, max out HP, and then just go from there. But yeah, so that is the core 6. I guess if anyone has any questions in particular, especially if you want to use this, let me know. I'll also be putting out a rental for this probably tomorrow. As long as I have time, I'll do like a live with the team, and just try, you know, basically explain everything I thought, you know, all my thoughts with the team. But yeah, that's the team of 6, guys. I guess let me know what you think of it. But now let's kind of, I guess, go through all the different versions of this team, and I'll kind of explain the story of how this team came to be. So as you guys can see here, there are a lot of versions of this team. As a matter of fact, the final team was version 15. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I did not extensively test a lot of these versions. There'd be, you know, some versions, in particular the Infernate version, where I did like 5 test games. I'm like, this just ain't it. But yeah, basically version 1, let's get into it. So this is the original version of the team. As you can see here, I'm still Sunny Day and I'm Air Slash. And as I said, I'm Covet Cloak, Terra Dragon with just basically max. The game, like the idea for this original team was like Air Slash with Chiyu does a lot of damage. Indeedee was like my way of beating things like Power Knight. It was also my way of beating Trick Room, because if you have a look at the other 5 mons here, I don't really have a way to beat Trick Room, especially with like how offensive everything is. You see like max, right? My whole team was max. I was incredibly super offensive. And I basically just could not beat opposing Trick Room, and the idea behind it was Imprison. And now I want to say, I did actually do really well with this team. I did get second at a local, you know, and that local had a lot of the top, you know, Melbourne players, 2 of which, as I said earlier in the video, I think, basically finished number 1 and 2 at the regional. So this team, I really liked it, but it was very obvious to me that it was way too offensive and it needed a bit more bulk. And there was also just like certain matchups where like I didn't like relying on Indeedee. Like I hated having to bring Indeedee to stop Trick Room, and that was like one of the major flaws I felt with this team. But in saying that, like having a redirection mon was like really good. I was also running redirection Ogerborn as well on this team. I had my Scarf Shifu, which was like a mod I almost brought. Like I ended up deciding like last second that Ogerborn Wellspring was the answer, but I was really close to running, you know, Rapid Strike for the most of the event. So moving on to the second version of the team, right? I basically ended up saying like, hey, one of this team's biggest issues really was Trick Room, right? And I did, well, not necessarily Trick Room, but more like, you know, like, I guess Trick Room in a sense, but also things like Amoonguss, right? A lot of these supports. So I ended up deciding to slot in the Landorus Eye here as a second Taunt mon. So at the time, we were running Taunt on our Tornadus, and then Taunt on our Landorus. And the reason for the second Taunt was basically because, you know, things like, you know, Farigara, for example, Indeedee were really obviously good at stopping, you know, the priority Taunt. Because of that, I kind of really just wanted a, you know, a secondary Taunt mon. And honestly, I really did love the Landorus Eye, and I did test it out on a few more teams here. As you can see, obviously, I just swapped it straight up for Indeedee. And then I'll quickly jump onto version 3, because I do believe actually, no, it was version 6 where I actually started bringing it back in. But basically, yeah, so this was kind of to help out with my Trick Room matchups, which is, I guess, very odd, right? Because you think about it, like, why would you bring in, like, a Landorus Eye for a Trick Room matchup? And I did some more testing. I was testing out the guy Ting Lu. Ting Lu was really, really cool. The main issue I kind of had with it was it felt like, in particular, the version of it I was using here, you know, Sand Tomb, Stomping Tantrum, Throat Chop, Snarl, was just a little too slow. I do actually think I ended up dropping this for Heavy Slam. I should probably update that. But yeah, Heavy Slam was obviously there for the Flutter mains, and like this wasn't bad. Like I think it was just I was like overly trying to beat like one team in particular, and that's because a lot of people at my locals, like who were, by the way, like really good players, were running like Blood Moon Ursa Luna. So having something that undersped it, you know, with a Brave Nature 0 speed, and then having things like, you know, Snarl, Throat Chop to stop the hyper voices and whatnot, was really, really good. Not to mention this one was just a good standalone mon into things like Flutter Mane, especially with like Terra Poison. Not to mention it was also really good next to like Ogerpon and the Urshifu as well, but I ended up deciding it was just a little, you know, a little too slow, and it didn't really fit the team. I did try to test it a little more by dropping the fire version of Ogerpon here with the Hisuian Arcanine. Now, unfortunately, my EV spreads aren't here. I actually copied this one from my phone, and I'm guessing I clicked the open team sheet one, unfortunately. And you can see here I did have Heavy Slam on it as well. But I did test out Hisuian Arcanine because I was kind of a believer in Hisuian Arcanine. And I was like, you know, I didn't Intimidate Mon. I didn't necessarily think Lando fit the team because I really wanted Scarf Shifu. And in hindsight, that's something I probably actually didn't consider enough, because by the time I ended up deciding not to go with Urshifu, I was pretty locked in to Hisuian Arcanine, and the whole reason I didn't go Landorus is because I wanted Scarf Shifu in this team in particular. You'll eventually see as well, I do start playing around with Rain Dance later. So that was version 4 of the team, obviously just testing out, you know, the Hisuian Arcanine. Then we get to version 5 of the team, which is funny enough because obviously this is the team I ended up running at the event. You can see I kind of changed up my moves a little bit here. I dropped CC. I've got Grassy Glide, Follow Me. The whole reason for putting Follow Me on this was because once I dropped the Indeedee, I was like, damn, I really, really miss my redirection. And I tested the team, and I'm like, this team ain't it. And it's funny because you look at this team, right? And obviously the Tornadus set, I'm a lot bulkier than I was earlier as well. I don't know if I mentioned that in some of the other teams. Obviously these sets didn't really change. I'll quickly touch on this as well. 444, I would recommend it. Like, it gave me like a 20% better chance to live a Stomping Tantrum from a Landorus, I think, which is like pretty cool. But then you see here, I'm like super bulky, not much attack on my Rillaboom, which I think was bad. My spread here was like super bulky with like Follow Me Glide. And then Hisuian Arcanine was like a bit more offensive as well, which obviously I ended up slowing down and bulking up a little bit. So this team here, I was like, nah, this team's bad. I don't like it, which is actually really funny because obviously it's very close to what I ended up finishing with, which is crazy too, because obviously you kind of see how much, you know, just two small changes where Glide and Follow Me and then just a little bit more offense was a massive game changer, especially for Rillaboom 2 going up to that 116 bump. Made, you know, a world of difference on the team. But as I said, you know, I didn't like the team. I was not a fan of, you know, Rillaboom, which I should probably mention too. The reason I put Rillaboom on this team was like, one, it gave me a secondary answer into Psy Spam, especially too if I felt like my Chi-Yu was forced to Terra or it just wasn't like good on lead. Like say for example, I lead my Chi-Yu and my opponent leads like, you know, what's a good example? Maybe like, you know, Roselia Iron Hands is a good example. There were times where like, sure, I could leave the Chi-Yu in, but it's a bit risky. You know, Rillaboom kind of filled a really nice spot where I could pivot in for it, because obviously fire and grass, you know, kind of complement each other really, really well. But I ended up deciding, you know what, that's not the play. I want to go back to Landorus. I loved having like non-priority taunt, but I really wanted a fake out mon. And I'm like looking at it and I was like, okay, what fake out mons do we want? We got Iron Hands, but the issue with Iron Hands was it was too slow, and I never wanted to be in a position where my opponent's Iron Hands was faster than mine. So I was like, that's bad. I tested Rillaboom. I didn't like it. I'm like, Infernape, that might be the answer. It gives me a second Fire mon for the Sun. And yeah, we'll try it. Unfortunately, I ended up dropping it pretty damn quickly. I love Infernape. It's one of my favorite mons. I don't know. It just, I don't think it was it. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a sick mon. I couldn't make it work, unfortunately. So then we go on to version 7. I'm like, all right, we're back on the Rillaboom train. And honestly, this team actually did feel like this was almost it. I'll tell you guys right now, this was almost the 6 I ran with. I don't think, you know, this isn't the version I got second with at a local though, but I was really, really close to writing this 6. As you see, I kind of dropped the Spadef because I was like, it felt really weird having so much Spadef, so I ran a bit of defense on it as well, and I really did like this version of the team. As I said, I almost locked it in. By the way, also don't go Scarf Jolly. I wanted 0 Scarf Jolly, so I knew I'd always outspeed. Which in hindsight was just dumb. Just go Adamant Jolly, guys. It's really not worth it. But as you see here as well, I did decide to end up going Rain Dance, even though I didn't have the Sandseer Storm on this. It kind of just felt like Chiyu plus Tornadus wasn't always the lead, I guess. And then obviously, you know, things start to, you know, develop a bit more, and I got onto this version of the team where I was like, you know, the AV Rillaboom isn't cutting it. How about a rain team that is built around like Qianpao plus Rilla, and then we kind of just have the Flutterfish there. As you see here as well, oh, this is completely off. This should still be speed booster. Yeah, that should still be booster. I don't know what it's doing here. Their energy. Oh, actually, should it be booster? Yeah, oh. I have a feeling that should have been booster. It could have honestly just been Specs Taunt because I'm a madman. But yeah, as you see here, we're running double weather as well. That was actually one thing I liked about this team because it meant I could lead like Chiyu, or I could lead Urshi, and I had answers. But this, honestly, this set wasn't that bad. I went like super physical off defensive. I believe this set helped you live opposing Qianpao Icicle Crashes. But again, like as much as I didn't mind like Qianpao, especially this Life Orb set, again, for me, it was like, it just felt really inconsistent. I don't like Icicle Crash. This move does not have 90% accuracy. I don't care what the game says. It's like 40% when I click it, and it's a 0% chance to flinch. I swear to God, this thing never flinches, and it doesn't hit. There's no way this accuracy is the same as Overheat. I'm telling you right now. I was going to show you Overheat, but I dropped it. But yeah, this team here was really cool. I think if you're someone who likes playing with a bit of priority, this team was good. This is where I decided to like drop Sash as well, as you drop Scarf, as you can see here. And I didn't mind the bulkier version with you know, like less attack, but Splash Plate. It was really nice. And this was a team I was definitely considering a bit, but it kind of didn't fit the playstyle I wanted. Actually, you know, this was actually Specs. I do remember this was Specs. This was Specs, and then like Taunt was like, we would go like fake out Taunt and then like pivot if we needed. But yeah, so that was a team I liked, but it just kind of didn't fit what I wanted. I basically, like, after a bit of testing, because you'll see as well, I think as we go further, I started testing special attack boosting Flutter Mane. Was this? No, we haven't quite got there yet. But yeah, I ended up deciding to go special. I tried special attack boosting and Specs. I didn't like them. I ended up going back to my speed booster set, which a lot of people did actually tell me like speed booster's not it, but I'm telling you guys right now, speed booster was it, especially on my team. As you see here, we finally go back to our Rillaboom, and you see here, this is where I think I actually started like testing out the more offensive Rillaboom, and this is where I was like, okay, offensive Rillaboom actually is the source. Like that little bit of extra attack does a lot, and you'll start noticing a lot of the teams started just having Rillaboom on it, because once I started testing the extra attack, I was like, okay, extra attack, still really bulky, still really good. And then I tested this guy. I'm like, nah, he's still not it. Like auto Ogre Pawn, it wasn't the source. So, you know, we evolve, we keep going. We get the Hisuian Arcanine back in there. You know, we're back to kind of like square one. I actually do think this was almost square one. Only difference was obviously we went the Arcanine over the Fire Ogre Pawn. The reason for it was because there was just so many bad matchups, and I was just struggling to fix the bad matchups. That's why I ended up bringing in DD, because DD did two things. It beat Power Nut and it beat Trick Room. That's why I brought it back. It just felt so hard to really beat those matchups without Indeedee. But then I realized Indeedee's not the source. Like I kept trying it. Like you see here, it's here again. I put the T-Tar on there to like help with other Trick Room matchups. But then I also kind of just realized, like, you know, it's, yeah, sure, T-Tar with like, you know, like Torn is like not bad, but I don't know. I was like, I love T-Tar. I wanted to make it work. It wasn't it. So we keep testing. We eventually wind up at this team. And this team was the team I almost locked in. I was almost certain this was the team I was going to lock in. As you see here, I finally gone to like the bulky helmet set. I really liked it. We were running Rain Dance with our Urshifu. We obviously at this point we changed to Adamant as well. These two were the sets I wanted to run the whole time. So I was like, okay, you know, they're feeling good. The offensive Rillaboom's feeling good. The Arcanine, as you see, this is the set I ended up running. This is feeling good. The main issue was this slot right here. And that was mainly because I hated this move if I didn't click Rain Dance. There are a lot of situations where I would lead, like I would just like not bring my Shifu, you know, I'd go like Torn plus Arcanine, and then I'd like maybe bring like Flutterfish in the back, maybe Rillaboom if I needed it. And I just could not stand Bleak Wind Storm. This move, I swear to God, did not freaking hit. And honestly, Urshifu did not come enough. Like, and maybe that was just my fault for the way I was playing the team. The team was so orientated around Flutterfish plus like Sunny Day that I think I was probably not bringing Urshifu to enough matches. But again, that's my fault. I kind of do wish I tested it a bit more, but I am obviously really happy with how it ended up. And then finally, you'll see I wound up on this version of the team here. I tried it, Swords Dance, Grassy Glide, and I'm like, this is almost it. I don't know about it. I didn't really like Glide. Like, my biggest issue with Glide was if I didn't bring Rillaboom. This mod felt bad if Rillaboom wasn't in the game, whereas with, you know, Horde Leech, it felt good with it without it in the game. And then I was basically like, this is the team. I just need to decide between Ogerpon and Urshifu. And then the regional like 2 weeks ago happened where the Regieleki did good. And then I was like, you know what, stuff it. Let's actually just test out Regieleki. Funny enough, that weekend, I ended up getting to the finals. I played Lewis, who finished second. He absolutely destroyed me. The match wasn't close. I didn't have answers. He was playing his like Roaring Moon balance team. The matchup just felt incredibly painful. Like, Rillaboom had to do way too much because like it was my only like defensive pivot into Amoonguss, but like it was also like my only like good pivot as well into the Iron Hands. It felt really, really hard, and that was kind of where I like thought to myself, and I thank Lewis for this. I was like, okay, like Regieleki's clearly not the play. Urshifu ticks so many freaking boxes. But I was just really scared of Amoonguss teams. Like, no one had been playing Amoonguss for like, you know, the 2 months leading up to this event. All of a sudden in the last 2 weeks, it feels like, you know, all the top players are running Amoonguss. And that's why I said, you know what, I think Ogerpon is the mon, but I don't think Grassy Glide is the move. And we went to Horn Leech, and the rest is history. I really love this team. As I said, I'll put out a rental code for the team tomorrow. But yeah, this is my team, guys. I absolutely loved it. I would play it again. The only issue I had with this team was Rock Slide misses, and I'll touch on it shortly when we go through my run. Rock Slide missing cost me one of my sets, which was very, very sad. And while, you know, Heat Wave and Style do miss, I think, missed one crucial overheat for the entire day. But I ended up winning the set anyway, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Air Slash was huge, even though you can miss it. I don't think I missed one, and it was incredibly clutch. Like, I think I got like 3 or 4 flinches for the day, which was really, really good. But yeah, that's the team. I absolutely loved it, guys. Yeah, I guess we'll jump into the flow chart, and then after briefly going through that, we'll talk about the run. Now, guys, I quickly wanted to say here, this was like my first time ever flowcharting, and the homie Mario did help me out quite a bit with this, so massive shout outs to him. Unfortunately, I did not actually get to finish this. I basically started doing this like 2 or 3 nights before the event, and I basically did not get to finish writing down everything I wanted to write out, which was kind of sad. But basically what I ended up doing was I would, you know, put down the mon, basically go through their strengths, their weaknesses, and kind of the concepts behind why they were on the team. So you see here by Tornadus, its strengths was setting up Tailwind and getting up Sun versus Urshifu. I could have obviously elaborated on that as well and said like setting up Sun for my Chi-Yu as well. And then I've got here as well Air Slash plus Rock Slide Dark Pulse flinches, which was again clutch. There are a lot of games where I could kind of ignore one slot and just double the other with like Air Slash plus Rock Slide, or, you know, Air Slash plus Dark Pulse. And it just put me in really good positions. You know, there's a lot of the time where you flinch, and it just felt really good. But the weaknesses of Tornadus obviously was Trick Room, and then the other one was getting stuck on the board in bad matchups after getting up. This is actually meant to say after Tailwind. Basically, there were a lot of situations where it felt like I could never pivot it out. And that was something I had to be very aware of, right? Like, you get it on the board, for example, up against like a Golden Go and an opposing Tornadus, and the opposing Tornadus goes like Terra Steel. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can do like 20% to either mon. I'm getting outsped because like everyone was like running like max speed Timid Golden Go for whatever reason. And there was just situations like that where it was like really, really bad. And I had to keep that in mind when I was leading it, right? Like, I didn't want to just lead this into like a potential like really bad matchup if the mon next to me was also really bad. So, you know, if I was in situations like that, I would, you know, say if I led my Arcanine, I would like never click Rock Slide, because like I know if I click Rock Slide, you know, all of a sudden the Golden Go's got a free game, it can click its buttons. So I would always have to like go on the offensive. And same with, you know, things like where a big one, for example, was leading Rillaboom plus Tornadus. They're, you know, steel types, hard wall, both of them. Like, obviously you can go for things like high horsepower, but there are a lot of matchups where it felt really bad. Same with things like Chi-Yu. Like, even if I led it with Chi-Yu, if they had a Heatran on their team, I really couldn't ever click a fire move, just because if I did and was like forced to switch out my my Chi-Yu, it just felt really, really bad. But then you see here, the concept was basically to lead with fish in a slow matchup. So lead with fish, and then in slow matchups, get up the sun and put on a lot of pressure. I kind of talked about that earlier, where, you know, I would go up against like Tornadus Landorus's, for example, and they'd go like Stomping Tantrum plus, you know, Tailwind. I'd just go Sunny Day Heat Wave and basically just put the pressure on from turn one. Like, there was a lot of times where, because mine was so slow, I never wanted to be in a Tailwind like mirror turn one. It was like, okay, you can have your Tailwind, but I'm going to put on so much pressure that, you know, you kind of waste your turn. Sure, you chip one of my mons, you know, like 60-70%, but I just pick up 2 mons that are on the board, and then I can kind of play a 4v2 where I'm like, okay, all of a sudden my Chi-Yu feels really good, Heat Wave doesn't, I can pivot it out, sack a mon, you know, get up my own Tailwind, then kind of stall out their Tailwind, and then basically try, you know, end it with my secondary Tailwind or on the back end of my own Tailwind. But, you know, I'll let you guys read through this. Actually, I'll read through it all quickly. I'll try to be a bit faster with all of them, because I'll be here all day otherwise. But, you know, Fluttermane on this team in particular, one of his strengths was speed, Icy Wind speed control. Fantastic secondary version of speed control, especially when I was going up against teams that didn't have, you know, their own Tailwind, but their speed control was things like, you know, just a fast Fluttermane or, you know, like a Scarf Landorus. So having Icy Wind, you know, was like fantastic in those matchups, but it also puts on a lot of pressure with Chi-Yu. Mainly because, one, you can Icy Wind to allow Chi-Yu to go first, or two, you can go for like Terra Fairy Moonblast like next to the Chi-Yu and do a lot of damage even without, you know, even without having, you know, like a boost to speed, sorry, boost to special attack or choice specs, which Chi-Yu's, you know, commonly ran. One of the weaknesses as well was Fluttermane could not really lead with Tornadoes due to speed booster not giving you enough damage or pressure. Also bad into Heatran. So that was something I had to keep in mind. You know, a lot of the time you'll see a lot of these, you know, top players that will just lead their Fluttermane next to their Tornadoes. On my team in particular, it was bad. Chi-Yu just does, sorry, the Fluttermane just didn't do enough damage by itself, which thankfully a lot of the time it wasn't by itself, but it was also really good at getting chip. And that's something, you know, we see here in the concepts where great secondary, you know, speed control mon, but it's also very good at getting chip, right? It's a mon that where you can kind of use it to get 40%, you know, chip onto like anything in the game, and then that kind of sets up the backline, whether that be the Ogerpon, Rilla, you know, Arcanine, Chi-Yu. Like, there were 4 really good offensive mons, and Chi-Yu was, sorry, and the Fluttermane was really just able to put them in a position to, you know, basically, you know, clean up the game. Chi-Yu, obviously the star of the show, that's why he's got a bit of extra stuff written here, but he puts on a lot of pressure. He beats Scythe Spam, he's strong into the sun, has the ability to one-shot a lot of the common meta mons with speed control, pairs really well with Fluttermane. What I mean by that is, like, Overheat basically kills anything that doesn't resist it, and then when you pair that with Fluttermane's Icy Wind, basically as long as they don't have Tailwind up, you can just kill anything, right? And that like honestly goes from as simple as like I just one-shot, you know, Landorus's, for example, to I one-shot Fluttermane's, to, you know, a Moonblast Overheat will, you know, KO Cresselis that aren't Terra Fire, for example. You can one-shot Iron Hands even if they're Assault Vest, as long as their Terra isn't like Terra Fire or Water. Or even if they obviously don't Terra, you can, you know, you one-shot Dusclops with a Violite max HP. Like, there's a lot of common meta threads like that where Chi was really able to put on a lot of pressure. And I found a lot of my opponents didn't realize that. And they'd say to me, even after game 1, like, you know, they'd lead their Dusclops Iron Hands, you know, they'd go the fake out for whatever reason. I just Moonblast, like, Overheat, pick up a KO, and like, wow, I didn't think I was going to kill my, you know, my Dusclops, for example. And then you see here, like, weaknesses, very fragile, its moves can miss, and Heatran forces you to click a dark move, which isn't always the best thing, especially when they're Terra Fairy. Concepts, get it on the board with speed control, Tailwind or Icy Wind, strong with fake out and intimidate support. There was one matchup in particular, I forget which one, where I think I just led it next to a Rillaboom, because I knew my opponent just like had a slow balance team. So having the faster fake out put me in a position where I could like fake out their Iron Hands, kill what was next to it, and then basically just start rolling the game from there, right? Pivot out if I need, and then just slowly just start, like, you know, cycling the Chi-Yu out, you know, throwing off Overheats, Dark Pulses, whatever. Hisuian Arcanine, strong into Power Knight, strong into opposing Tailwind. I kind of touched on it earlier. This one fixed up a lot of my matchups, and that was the 2 main ones in particular. When I lost in DD, I didn't really have a good answer to Power Knight, and Arcanine was fantastic with that. And I also found a lot of Tailwind matchups were like really 50-50, where, you know, Hisuian Arcanine really patched up a lot of those and made a lot of those like 50-50 matchups. Oops, sorry for that, Windows Defender. Yeah, it made a lot of 50-50 matchups feel a lot like more in my favor. Weakness, 4x to water. I should also say 4x to ground as well. They were really the only weaknesses. I think this mod's insanely good. I would almost argue it's underrated, even though it won like 5 out of 6 regionals or something, you know, stuff you, Nick, for ruining that. But yeah, really, really good mon. And then Concept, very good at slowing down the game and stalling Trick Room. That was something I did a lot with Arcanine plus Rillaboom paired up with the Ogerpon, was basically just slow the game down. If I need to use defensive pivots, you know, I set up my ogre pawn, like for example, would get up the SD, I would, you know, cycle in the Intimidate, which would then allow me to live like a Drain Punch or a Wild Charge. I could Horn Leech back, and then I would like Spiky Shield, like as I swap back into my Rillaboom. Stuff like that was really, really good, and it's just fantastic at slowing down a lot of, you know, mons. It was also a really good lead into the Weezing teams as well. You know, the homie Luke was running it. I did play one Weezing team at the event. And it's just really good at leading into Weezing, because Weezing can't burn you, it doesn't want to gunk shot you, and Roaring Moon really can't touch you. Like, sure, it can knock off your choice band, but like, you also kind of just beat it one-on-one, because a lot of the time they were like breaking swipe plus knockoff. And with Terra Fairy, you know, once you got rid of the Arcanine, sorry, the Weezing, you're able to kind of run through it. Rillaboom, I actually ended up writing a lot for this mon, because this mon, as I said, ended up being one of the MVPs. Fake Out plus priority can be used as a secondary offensive move. It's meant to say mon, I think. Woodhammer in terrain does a lot of damage. One shots Urshifus that don't terror. Yeah, basically, you know, this bond, it felt really, really good. Fake Out was fantastic. Its damage was fantastic. Honestly, I can't say enough about Rillaboom. It was definitely one of the MVPs. You know, weakness, Rillaboom can only lead with Tornadus if it puts on a lot of offensive pressure. Basically meaning as long as my opponent doesn't have ways to really resist the Woodhammer. It was a fantastic lead into Fluttermanes. There was one of my matchups in particular I'll talk about when I actually go through my run, where my opponent led like Tornadus plus Fluttermane, and I just Woodhammered at turn 1. I was like, I'm just getting rid of you. I'm really not messing with it. Concepts, obviously, I've kind of touched on them a bit, but sometimes the mon will look really good because it can KO other mons. Except when what the hell? Except when you do, you give a free switch in, and you have no switch in, which means you lose Fake Out pressure. Basically, what that was kind of saying is like, don't necessarily take a KO if you need to fake out something in the back. Basically, a lot of the time, it's like good to, like, you know, say for example, this was next to my Chiyu. Rather than, you know, like take a kill with like a Woodhammer, just do like a defensive pivot into like the back, and then like Heat Wave or something, and then like switch again. It's kind of what I was getting at there. But yeah, you guys can read that. I honestly, I don't know. I was kind of late at night when I wrote that. But Fake Out pressure in endgames is really good, is kind of the gist of it. Ogre Pawn, SD, very strong into Balance and Trick Room, strong matchup into Urshifu. Urshi Rapid was obviously one of the best ones in the game, so having Ogre Pawn Water was fantastic for it. And this one with SD was just fantastic at slowing down games. Like, as I said, there'd be a lot of times where I'd switch in my Rillaboom as a Spiky Shield, and then you're in a position where you can just go Fake Out, Horn Leech, get all your HP back, switch back into the Arcanine, attack again, and then you can like Spiky Shield, as you get the Rillaboom back in, and it was just really, really good. As you can see here, bring into matchups where setup is strong, Balance, Tailwind tend to be the games I need to either extend and stall Trick Room turns, yeah, and you know, use it to break through Balance. I ran a lot of lines into the what at least we were calling Jude Lee Balance, which is essentially Roaring Moon Balance. And yeah, there were a lot of games where this mon just like broke through the balance for me, which was really, really cool. And then, yeah, basically just talking about the cores of the team. I had the hyper offensive core, obviously, which was like the Flutterfish Taunt plus like Hisuian Arcanine. Basically, this team was just like really hyper offensive. The key to it was put on a lot of pressure, and basically don't let, you know, don't take your foot off the gas was the idea behind it, right? When you get like these mons on the board, you don't want to start like doing these defensive pivots. You need to keep pressuring your opponent. Don't try and make these like sick reads. Just put the pressure on, pick up KOs, and just kind of break a hole through them. And then what I called the anti-balance core of the team, which was the Rilla Ogre, Flutter, Chiyu versus Balance. Obviously, this also involved Hisuian Arcanine as well. I don't know why I didn't write it down there. But I said, first Balance, you need to, you know, put on the pressure. Don't play Balance to Balance. That was one of the biggest issues I think I had originally with the team, where I would go up against a Balance team and I would try to outbalance the Balance. And then I just like realized, like, what's the point in like just trying to like, you know, fake out, you know, intimidate an opposing Balance team. Like, get up the goddamn Swords Dance and break through it. And that's what I've got here. Don't be afraid to set up to break the balance. I had a lot of games where I would do that, where they would try to like cycle their intimidate a lot, where, you know, they would use like Landorus plus like whatever it was, like a Moongus to like cycle intimidates onto my Ogre Pawn. And I just have games where I would just click SD 2 turns in a row, right? Because I'm like, I know you're just going to switch out into your you know, you're just gonna switch into a Moongus, you know, in case I like Spiky Shield, and because of that, I'm setting up, right? I'm not messing around here, right? And then yeah, complimentary lead. You guys can read this. Like Tornchiyu basically kind of just explained what the mons did together. And then, you know, down here as well, kind of just how I beat, you know, some of the common cores, things like, you know, Flutterfish can, you know, Dusclops on redirect, on turn 1, without redirection, and ignore Fake Out if Clops has redirection. Don't allow a free switch by killing the ally, position, Rilla, Ogre Pawn, and Arcanine. Basically, what that kind of meant there was like, what is the point in, like, if your opponent, for example, leads an Ogre Pawn for redirection, what is the point in doubling that Ogre Pawn, letting them set up Trick Room, and then getting their, like, Blood Moon Ursaluna in for free, for example? Like, if you're going to lead that redirection, maybe I click like Moonblast or Heatwave, depending what they lead, and then I switch in my Rillaboom, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I've got my Rillaboom on the board. Rillaboom can, kind of put on a bit of pressure. I can fake out and stall, right? It's like, oh, you set up Trick Room with your Dusclops. Okay, I'm going to Terrafire, fake out them on next to you, and now I'm going to cycle in whatever one's in the back and just kind of do that, right? You play this really slow game where you're kind of threatening the opponent in a sense like, hey, you can't switch here, but if you do, I'm going to put pressure on, right? Like a great example is like, say for example, you're going up against an Ogreborn Water, right? It's full HP. A Grassy Glide won't kill it, but they could also switch into their Blood Moon Ursaluna in the back. Then it's like, okay, I'll go for the Grassy Glide. I won't go for the Wood Hammer because I know the Wood Hammer would kill and I don't want the kill. So you go to the Grassy Glide. That way, if they do switch in, then all of a sudden you've just done 60-70% to something like a Blood Moon Ursaluna. And now all of a sudden they're in a position where they can't really set up. If they try to Brick Break their Ursaluna, for example, Glide plus Brick Break would be enough to kill. So that's kind of the idea behind that. And then you see here things like Power Knight. I would just Arcanine Flutter Mane them. Armarouge and Didi would be like Chi-Yu +1 with Rillaboom in the back. This would always come down to what they had, right? Like, for example, if they might lead a Iron Hands, which normally they wouldn't if they had the Indeedee. But yeah, it was like Chi-Yu plus whatever looks good. Make sure you've got Rillaboom in the back. Like against, this is meant to say Urshifu Rapid. The answer is Rillaboom +1. Torn Flutter Mane is just Torn plus Arcanine. Amoonguss plus Roaring Moon here. Depends on the Terra, but Arcanine +1 normally is pretty good. Normally that would be like Arcanine plus Ogreborn, for example, because even if he wants to break and swipe me, I can SD in the face of Amoonguss. I don't care. Golden Go Amoonguss, Water Ogreborn. Why? Because SD, Terra Water. You've also got like, you've got SD, you got Terra Water if you need it. It's great. And then I was like putting some replays there, but I'm not going to go through them now. But that was kind of what I was doing. But I only started this, as I said, like 2 days before the event. I really wish I did this like 2 weeks out before the event, just to help me obviously get more comfortable with the team. But I kind of just wanted to show this off so you guys kind of, could see my thought process that I was going through just in the, the days leading up to the event, trying to make sure I remembered how to beat certain matchups, right? And, just kind of theory craft certain leads. And then also, thanks to two of the friends, Lukey and Mario, I was able to, I guess, test out some of these. We ran some scrims, and that's kind of how, for example, I learned versus balance just to SD against them, right? That wasn't something I initially saw, but after I, did a bunch of test games with Mario, I was like, hey, the only way I'm winning these games is when Ogreborn sets up. And then we kept running the matchups with like him knowing I wanted to like SD, in the face of him, so he was going to try to stop the SD. And a lot of the time it didn't matter. You get up the SD, you pivot, the fake out, and you just start horn leeching up, and it felt really, really good. But yeah, I guess that's it for the team. Again, if you guys have any questions about the team, let me know down below. But I guess we'll quickly finish this up by talking about my run, because I have actually been here for quite a minute talking about this team. So let's jump over and do that. So as you guys can see here, this is basically my run. As you can see here, I ended up going 6-2 with only one of my opponents actually going negative. The only other thing too is I'm curious about this round 6 because I thought he was 5-3. That must have changed at some point. But I do believe Brendan here was actually running one of the teams that also finished top 4. So unfortunately, I won't actually be able to show you his exact team. I didn't actually copy it down. But thanks to Top Cut Explorer, we can actually have a look at anyone who basically went 5-3 and better. So I'll have a, I'll pull up the teams, have a quick, talk about their teams and how the kind of matches went. Unfortunately, I didn't take enough notes because I'm an idiot. But yeah, if you're interested, I guess let's jump over to that and we'll have a chat about the matchup, shall we? So our round 1 opponent here was Jackson Belknap. We did actually get a win in this matchup. Basically, the way this set in particular went was game 1. I kind of played it really slow, just because I wasn't sure how things would go. Obviously, it's round 1 of the year tournament as well. I don't want to play like an idiot. But I quickly learned that my opponent, while they did finish 5-3 and they had what looks to be a pretty standard meta team, they were actually running some really, really unique sets. If I had to guess, every one of these mons were max. What do I mean by that? I know, for example, Heatran was Timid Max Speed. It outsped my Arcanine, which I think was 138. Timid Max Speed, Heatran hits 141, so he was basically Timid Max. The Giraffe, I think I won. I don't. All I remember is I killed the Giraffe with a Moonblast Overheat combo on turn 1. In game 2, the Iron Hands died to a non-Terra Moonblast from my Flutter Mane. As you can see here, it's attack booster, which was very interesting. The Rillaboom was a bulk up, no protect set with no fake out, which was also really interesting. And then Shifu plus Tornadus. Basically, the way this matchup went was game 1. I kind of played it slow while I was like getting a feel for his team. And then, I ended up, squeaking out game 1. It was pretty close, but I quickly realized my opponent was just max everything. The second his Iron Hands died to 1 Moonblast, I was like, okay, this guy is probably just literally max attack, and he could be max speed on that Heatran. So on that Iron Hands. And so basically what ended up happening in game 2 was I just led my Flutterfish. And he kind of played it a bit defensive. Like I remember him like switching in Heatran, and then he like protected it. It's like I think turn 1 he like switched out his like Giraffe and then switched in his Heatran or something like that. And actually it might have even been Rillaboom. I think he might have led Rillaboom and then like switched into Heatran, and then turn 2 he protected. And all I did was just Moonblast, overheat the other slot, and then he like protects the Heatran. I do it again. And then he brings in like Iron Hands as his last mon. I one-shot that with Moonblast. And because I one-shot it with Moonblast, I gave the Heatran Flash Fire. And the Heatran actually did KO my Flutterfish with like a second Heat Wave. But I had Rillaboom plus Ogerpon in the back. He protected on the Fake Out as I SD'd up and then one-shot it with Ivy Cudgel. And I still had Horn Leech as well. Sorry, I had Stomping Tantrum. High Horsepower also, which was pretty good. But that's basically how round 1 went. Game 1 was close. Game 2 was a bit of a stomp. But yeah, once I basically figured out my opponent was max, the game was it was over pretty damn quickly. So my round 2 matchup here was against Scott Kennedy. Roaring Moon balance, Roaring Moon Wheezing team, really annoying. This set went to game 3. He ended up winning the set. It was very unfortunate. I'm not gonna lie. I lost this game to a 10% mischance. Basically, what ended up happening was game 3, the board state was his Chi-Yu and his Roaring Moon versus my Ogerpon and my Arcanine. My Arcanine had Terra Fairy'd. And basically, I think only the Roaring Moon had taken any chip damage at that point. It wasn't much. I think it took a Rock Slide earlier in the game. But it was like -2 at this point as well. And basically what ended up happening was he went for the Tailwind as I Rock Slided. He one-shot my Ogerpon with an Overheat. I connected the Rock Slide on the Roaring Moon and missed the Chi-Yu. And then unfortunately, because I was Terra Fairy at that point, the Overheat plus knockoff was able to pick up my Arcanine, which was also really upsetting just because he connected on back-to-back overheats, and I missed my Rock Slide. Especially at this point, I knew it was done as well, because I think when the knockoff hit me, I went from like, I think the knockoff did like 20 damage, because I was Terra Fairy, and as you can see, his only moves were knockoff, Breaking Swipe. So he knocked off my Choice Band, which didn't matter because I still would have one-shot the Chi-Yu at that point. And then in a one-on-one, I would have just beat his Roaring Moon. So, he connects on both overheats, which again, I don't know how he did like 70% with the second overheat, which was kind of insane. Just shows you how good Chi-Yu actually is. But yeah, unfortunately, I ended up losing round 2 due to a very unfortunate miss, which was very sad. But look, it was still a really close set. As you see, my opponent ended up going 5-3, which is kind of the story of a lot of these games. As you can see, a lot of my opponents actually had really good records. It was the my round 3 matchup that dropped, which kind of really ended up screwing my resistance, which is why I finished so low out of the other 6-2s. Unfortunately, I don't remember much about the Josh Bartram game. I'm almost certain I 2-0'd him. Outside of that, I don't remember anything. I can't even show you his team either, just because he's like so low, and unfortunately, Top Cut Explorer is only showing the top 62, sorry, the top 64. But yeah, unfortunately, can't really tell you much about Josh. I remember, I actually remembered after I beat him, I thought like, hey, this guy's team's actually pretty good. It'll be good for my resistance. He was like the only opponent outside of my round 4 matchup where I'm like, that's good for my resistance. And yeah, he ended up going 2-5 dropping, which really hurt my resistance, which was pretty damn sad. But then we see my opponent here. I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce that. It was a Chinese player, very good. I can actually pull up his team because he was like one of the top 6-2 players. He is like here at number 11 or something, right? Yeah, here he's here. He finished 11th. And this is also kind of like what I was saying before. So this guy here finished 9th at 6-2, and then I finished at 22nd at 6-2. All because really one guy dropped. I was so close to actually like, I think Jude Lee was like less than 10% ahead of me off memory, which was really sad because had that one guy done like slightly better, and like not to mention Homeboy here as well, he actually lost, like I'll actually explain his round 8 to you guys as well because I actually watched it. I was like so close to being so much higher, and like it sucks too because the difference between me getting 22nd and 16th was 750 USD. Because I got 22nd, I didn't get any money, whereas like Jude and Henry got top 16 and they got money, even though we had the exact same records. Granted, I went 2-2 to start, so like that's on me, right? But as we can see here, I'm going to refer to my opponent as Wang just because I feel like I'll butcher his first name. This was a really, really hard matchup. This was like the only Tailwind team, or sorry, Tornadus Tailwind team that beat me. This was rough. This went to game 3. Basically, what happened in game 1 is my opponent like completely outread me. Basically, I made like 2 plays that were pretty obvious. He read them both, ran straight through me. It was really, really unfortunate. I think off memory, he taunted me turn 1 and then just like picked up a KO with his other mon. And at that point, my Tornadus was kind of useless and he kind of ran through me from there. Game 2, I ended up making a really good play. Turn 1 where he went for the taunt on me and I one-shot his Tornadus with an overheat. I think what happened exactly? I forget what he led, but he basically led something that wanted to kill my Chiyu and could, and I Terra Ghosted to avoid the kill. And then overheated killed, and then he brought in his Qian Pao, and then he made the read that I wouldn't attack with my Chiyu, because obviously at that point I was like Terra Ghost and he has Sucker Punch, and I just manned up and doubled it with Air Slash and Overheat as he Sacred Sworded, obviously predicting a switch into my Arcanine. So yeah, I was able to pick that up and I was basically able to run through game 2 very quickly. Game 3, I ended up going completely rogue and decided to lead my Ogerpawn plus, what's it called? Ogerpawn plus Rillaboom. I think I mentioned this one earlier. And he led Tornadus plus Fluttermane, and I just went Woodhammer into Fluttermane, Terra Water Ivy Cudgel into Tornadus. I one-shot the Fluttermane who Dazzling Gleamed, and I believe the Tornadus actually made the right play of going for the Bleakwind Storm, and unfortunately ended up living on like 10%, but it put me in a really good position because then all of a sudden, I was able to basically next turn Spiky Shield plus Grassy Glide and pick up the Tornadus, as then my opponent brought out his Qian Pao, and it was basically Qian Pao Rilla, and I still had basically a full HP Ogerpawn, I think at that point. Actually, no, sorry, I think the Fluttermane Moonblasted Rillaboom off memory, and I lived it. I lived the Moonblast plus Bleakwind combo, and then I died the next turn. To the Rocky Helmet chip, I believe. But basically, I was in a position where my opponent had Qian Pao and Rillaboom on the board. I had a almost full HP Ogerpawn, and my opponent had Tailwind up. I didn't. I brought in my Arcanine, which in hindsight was a throw. I remember sitting there tossing and turning. I was like, okay, I either go Fluttermane here or I go Arcanine here. I think I should have gone Fluttermane protected and cycled my Ogerpawn out and then brought in the Arcanine. I ended up leading the Arcanine, so bringing in the Arcanine there. So Qian Pao, Rillaboom, both minus 1 HP. He still had his Terra up. As you can see here, it's Terra Fire. I made the call that my opponent would not, I made the call my opponent would Terra Fire, obviously, because, you know, like, I would just one-shot his Rillaboom and then put him in a 2-on-1 position. My opponent went for the Woodhammer into my Ogerpawn, which killed it, and then he went for the Sacred Sword into my, my Arcanine. I lived on, like, 60 HP. I clicked Rock Slide. I connected both. I dropped the Paddle with Sash. Unfortunately, Rillaboom didn't Terra, which... yeah, basically kind of sealed the deal, because at that point, my Speed Booster Fluttermane was actually able to, like, almost win the game. I think Rillaboom ended up living literally because of Grassy Terrain regen, because I had to stall out the Grassy Terrain. Basically, like, my opponent went for the Grassy Glide, I protected. He ran out of his Grassy Glide, and then I think I think because he was -1, I lived the Woodhammer off memory, because for some reason he didn't Sucker Punch. He went for like an attack. So I was able to like live the Woodhammer, double Moonblast it. It lived on like 5% HP. He killed me. Really, really unfortunate, because at that point, like, I was 2-2, and at that point I knew I couldn't top cut. I originally thought I was still in the chance to top cut, because we thought 2 6-2s would make it. But then I was like, I'm 2-2, I can't make it. You know, basically I'm at a point where my resistance just won't be good enough. Which, you know, funny enough, because, like, again, going back to this, you see all my opponents here. Only one of them actually went negative. I had 2 4-4s, and then I had, what, I think it's like 4 5-3s and a 6-2. So I had pretty good competition for the most part. But yeah, so it's really, really unfortunate to lose that one to Mr. Wang here. His win and in was actually, like, really brutal as well. It was game 3. And I believe it was a +2 Komodo versus Urshifu Rillaboom. And it was like a Komodo with lefties, and like the Surging Strike did like a good chunk of damage, but then there was a roll that the Body Press would kill, and he got it. I think the roll was in the favor of the Urshifu to live off memory, and it didn't live, and everyone was like kind of shocked. It was like, holy shit, as if that killed. And then unfortunately, due to grassy terrain plus protect leftovers. The Komodo was just able to stall out, and I think the last, like the Woodhammers were doing like no damage, but he won the game on about 5% HP on the Komodo. I think he was a crit away from winning as well, which was kind of really sad. But yeah, so he unfortunately did fall just shy of top 8 with this team, which was a very, very good team, which is funny too, because I think I had this exact same team, or very close to this team, in the builder. But yeah, so GG to him. Definitely the toughest match I had of the day. Then we had Daniel. Daniel's team was very, very interesting. This was actually the game where I got incredibly unlucky. This should have been a quick 2-0 in my opinion. There he is. Yeah, so this should have been a quick 2-0, but I had some really bad RNG in this set. I ended up winning in 3, but yeah, so off memory, my opponent game 1 led his Lando plus Tornadus. I led my Chiyu plus Tornadus. He taunted as I Terra Ghosted, he EQ'd, and I missed my overheat on his Tornadus. He then Rock Slide double flinch crit me. And somehow I still ended up pulling out that game. It was wild. Game 2 was like, I forget, it was like really, really weird. I remember like, I'm pretty sure I got like cheesed as well in game 2. Like I remember sitting there thinking like, dude, this guy's the luckiest player I've ever played against. And then game 3, he decided to lead his Spec Golden Go as I like just led the same thing, which was my Chiyu. And then I predicted him going for the taunt. And I air slash snarled. His Golden Go lived on like 5 HP, but I'm pretty sure I also Terra Steeled. So like the Golden Go lives on like 5% HP. I killed his Tornadus, and then at that point the game was done. I was just able to click another snarl. I think I ended up going like, oh no, sorry. He clicked Shadow Ball. That's right. He clicked Shadow Ball into my Chiyu, and it did like 20 damage at -1. It was actually insane. Then he like broadened his Landorus or something like that. He didn't have Tailwind up, so I knew I was faster. So like I cycled out my, I think I just cycled out my Tornadus, clicked like Terra Ghost Snarl, killed off the Golden Go, did like almost half health to the Landorus, and then at that point it was GG. My Flutter Mane plus Tornadus was able to give me the speed control, win it. So yeah, I was able to get that done. Brandon, obviously I can't show you his exact team, but he was running, I think it was this team here. I don't know if these guys built together, if their teams were just like basically the same. Actually, no, I think it was slightly different. It was very similar to this though. I know he had Psyspan plus Sunroom, but I have a feeling he had Blood Moon or Saluna. I forget exactly. It could have been this exact same team. But this guy ended up getting super unlucky. I think game 1, he missed a sleep powder, which I don't necessarily know if it mattered, just because I don't think my opponent had the ability to break through my team anyway. But he like missed a sleep powder as I like snarled and basically like ruined the Torkoal's game. And then he eventually got my Arcanine to sleep on the next turn, because I think I snarled and then I switched in my Arcanine. Because I actually went for a, I think... Yeah, so I made the switch as he like went for a second eruption or something like that. He slept my Arcanine, but then he like pivoted, got his Trick Room up. But then my Arcanine only slept for 1 turn. I got like the first turn wake up. And because of that, I ended up just like sweeping through his team with Rock Slide. Game 2, I forget exactly what I did game 2. I think I ended up finding out his Lilligant was adamant. So because of that, my Chiyu was faster. And I ended up just running through game 2 pretty quickly. And yeah, I got a quick 2-0. Honestly, like, I don't know if the RNG game 1 mattered. It might have, just because like he could have caught me off guard. But regardless, I really liked my matchup into him. And yeah, I think I was pretty solid in that one. Peter Nguyen, he ran a Tailwind team. Very, very scary. We went to game 3, and I forget exactly what happened throughout the set. But he actually kind of choked at the very end of game 3. Basically, the board state was my Chiyu and my Ogerborn versus his Iron Bundle. That was full HP. And he ended up going for the Freeze Dry onto my Ogerborn, allowing me to just one-shot him with a Dark Pulse. So yeah, I think, like, who knows? I might have still won the game, because I think he had to go Hydro Pump into my into my Chiyu. He did mention that his what's it called? Iron Bundle was like super bulky. Apparently he had like no like special attack in it. So I'm not sure if it actually mattered or not. If like, I don't know if he would have killed my Chiyu. But regardless, I think he had to go for that play. And yeah, he decided to kill my Ogerborn. Oh, sorry. As I just one-shot his I one-shot him to basically win the game. And then finally, Megan, my good friend Megan. We play a lot at locals. She's one of the best players in Australia. And fortunately for me, I have a fantastic matchup into her. I'm 3-0 basically. in our matchups against each other. Basically, what happens in this matchup is kind of what I was explaining with my team earlier. Ogerpawn clicks Swords Dance. These two pivot around. Chiyu comes in once the Trick Room goes down and ends the game. I ended up, so like game one, Megan actually made like a fantastic read and she led her Landorus into me. And she also actually, like, the reason she's Terrifier as well is because of me. She had a different Terror originally, and then she learned the hard way. She couldn't live a Moonblast plus an Overheat. So yeah, thanks me for that one, I guess. But yeah, look, a really, really scary team. Game one, she led this. She ended up taking game one. Game two, she kind of adapted, realizing I would adapt, and she went Cresselia plus Iron Hands. Game one, I double switched, so I led Flutterfish game one, which I didn't do game one, I led Arcanine plus Ogerpawn. Game two, I led Flutterfish, and I double switched turn one of game two. Basically, at that point, I was able to like kind of just leave Iron Hands on the board being like, just like kind of like shit. I was able to like fake out, set up SD, pivot into my Flutter main as like Spiky Shield, pivot back into my Rillaboom as back into my Rillaboom as I attacked. And then at that point, I was kind of just able to use Ogerpawn to kind of break through a team. Both games 2 and 3, she did go Terrifier, which was really good for my Ogerpawn because obviously once Ogerpawn was able to set up, it was able just to one-shot the Cresselia at +2. And Terra Water Ogerpawn was really good in this matchup because once Iron Hands was dealt with, Terra Water Ogerpawn couldn't be hit for super effective damage outside of like her own Ogerpawn, which I don't think she brought. I think I'm pretty sure the last 3 games were all Landorus, Blood Moon, Iron Hands, Cresselia. And then in game 3, I made the read that once again she would go for the Terrifier, but I also made the read that she wouldn't go for the fake out. And she even said it herself, she probably should have gone the fake out. But I just overheat Moonblasted the Iron Hands because I knew once Iron Hands was gone, I would go on to win the game with my own Ogerpawn, and that's basically what happened. I turned 1, killed it. She got in her Ursaluna, but funny enough, the issue with Blood Moon Ursaluna, especially on her set, which is the Terrago's Throat Spray set, which I actually do think is the better set. Unfortunately for her, she does not do enough damage to kill either of my Mons. And because of that, I believe off memory, I switched out Chiyu just in case, because I think Beads of Ruin plus Blood Moon actually does kill my Flutter main, but it does not kill my Chiyu. And because of that, I switched out I think I switched out my Chiyu and I just raw Moonblasted. I did like 60%. And then at that point, I was able to kind of do what I was saying before, right? Because I think she did, off memory, Blood Moon. I forget exactly what happened. But I was basically able to get in my Ogerpawn. I was able to, terror it, get up the SD, cycle in my fake out, and then basically end the game from there. Because again, both games she Terrified, which meant I was pretty free to fake out the Blood Moon Ursaluna. But yeah, that was basically the end of my run. I was really, really like upset. I don't want to say I was upset. I was actually really, really happy with the result of the tournament. It's hard, especially for me, to feel like I lost, considering I went on a 4-game win streak to end the event. And the whole time I actually thought I was in contention for top cut. I didn't realize top cut was only top 8. And as you can see here, top 8 literally was a 7-1 cut. Obviously, these guys are all 7-2. And that is just because they all obviously lost in the first round of top cut. But 7-1 top cut is brutal. And obviously we did just fall short, unfortunately, of a day 2 Swiss. Obviously I was on track to make day 2 Swiss. And obviously I'm pretty sure I actually would have, because if you have a look at this, a lot of, 5-3s actually would have made top cut. So obviously, had I got on to win, I would have been in a good position. And even if I did lose to Megan, who was obviously sorry, not to Megan, to my next opponent, they also would have been 6-2. So it was a good chance, obviously, to top cut if we did have 9 rounds going into a Swiss. So that was the only thing that really disappointed me. I feel like I had a really good run, and like my second half of the day was really good. And again, if you look at my opponents, I didn't have an easy run. There were guys in the top 8, from what I was told, that had a bunch of like 2 6s on their records, right? Like these guys had like the easiest, 3-4 rounds of their life. Meanwhile, my first 4 rounds were a 5-3, a 5-3, and a 6-2. Even my round 5 went 5-3. So I had a pretty difficult run, but all in all, I am pretty proud of it. But I've been here for way too long recording this video, guys. Yeah. So I guess let me know down below. If there's any questions about my run, whatever, ask me. I feel like I just gave it all to you. But yeah, I guess I'll catch you in the next one. And obviously Regulation F is just around the corner at this point. I'm not sure if I'm going to play any more like actual competitive in terms of like, preparing for events. I might play another local in between now and the end of the year. But basically between now and the DLC, I'm kind of going to be focused on just doing other stuff. I'm still going to be making videos, obviously. But the video is going to be more focused on, maybe, new Pokemon return, coming back into the game, maybe some potential leaks and whatnot, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, guys, that's it for this one. Catch you in the next one. Peace.